Hey there, folks. Thanks for joining us on another board game night. Today we're having a look at Terminator Dark Fate, the card game. This is by River Horse Games and designed by Jack Caesar. This is out for you to buy, so we're going to have a show you what it's like and see what sort of game it is. And then at the end, we'll tell you what we think. We're going to obviously show you some gameplay so you can see how the game flows, the decision to makes, and all those sort of good stuff. And to help me with that, I've got my partner, Carla. Hey,
Hello.
babe. All right, so let's get straight into this. This is a deck building game, and it's obviously based on the movie Terminator Dark Fate. Uh, we haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how close it is to the actual property of the movie, but I have seen all the other previous Terminator movies, so I kind of guess that makes a difference. What we do is each person plays a character. So, for example, I'm playing Carl, a self-aware Terminator. Why that's relevant is because you have an ability and a special unique card that you would start with. Carla is playing.
I'm playing Sarah Connor. And I guess she's Sarah Connor, really. I don't think anybody needs to describe who she is, but she's got her own abilities that add to
Your deck.
Yeah.
And then the other two characters you can play are Danny Ramos and Grace. So each person chooses a card, a character, and then we also get a starting deck. I've already drawn my first 5 hands, but lucky enough, you start with five preps, which are basically your resource, setbacks, which are your dud cards, and then your neat card, which is, in my case, is the T800 rather, which is a combat card. All of that will make sense once we get to the gameplay. Setup is you get your character card, 10 starter cards, 5 of the preps for the setbacks, 1 unique. You lay out 5 cards from the fate deck, and you have a stack of wound cards and a stack of damage counters. And then you choose your endo. So there's different, we're starting with a basic one, but you've got different levels and they get progressively harder. You can even play with multiples as well. And what you do is you shuffle the first one into the top 5 cards of the deck. So it could come out next or it could come out towards the bottom. And when it comes out, it hunts you. So thematically what you're doing is you're on the run, trying to stay safe, build up your equipment, and travel from location to location. And once the endo comes out, you're then trying to stop him. The way you win as the players is once you defeat the Terminator. The Terminator is basically has a stat in red on the right of the card called the stagger value. The stagger value, once you've done enough damage to the endo, you then or stagger him, and then you need to play another card, kind of like a finishing move to kill him off. Once you've done that, you've won. But if you haven't done enough damage to either stagger him or kill him, he'll stick out around there, constantly using these hostile cards to attack you with. And as we accumulate wounds, which will go into our decks, we die when one of us has 3 or more wounds in our hand when we start a round. As I'm playing Carl, I'm immune to that because obviously he was a Terminator himself. I'm immune to that, so it's basically we lose when Carla draws 3 wounds into her hand.
No pressure.
Yeah. Um, and that's pretty much it. So obviously we'll explain more as we go along what the different cards do, what different effects they have, and so on. But to begin with, we obviously start with 5 cards and we get going. And we'll go through the sort of turn summary as we're playing. So let's get straight into that. Alright, so this is the gameplay. I am the first player. I draw my 5 cards. As you can see, this is the cards I've drawn. The 2 setbacks are nothing, they're just dead cards. Those are my resource cards, and those are my armory cards. So the first thing you do during the turn summary is the play phase. You play as many of the cards in your hand as you want to. You don't have to play all the cards. It's a very similar deck building game like DC Deck Builder, Legendary, Dominion, those type of games, where obviously the more cards you get, the better cards you get, the more combos and stuff you can pull off. So, for example, these 2 setback cards, I'm just going to dump them now. The T800 card is a defense card. I can discard this card and draw 2 cards if something attacks me from a hostile point of view. I'm hoping that's not going to come up early, so I think I'm going to play this for the 3 bullets. Now you see this hostile card over here says armed and dangerous. This won't do anything to us until the Terminator comes out. When the Terminator comes out and he does the hunt, all the hostile cards in play and what's drawn will attack us. So this one would do wound the current player once per munition in the reserve. So
1 munition.
So that's pretty bad. It takes 3 bullets to kill this card. So I might as well, I got nothing else to attack with. So I might as well attack this. This will go to the bottom of the deck. I'll sort that out in a minute. This doesn't refill. I'll tell you how that works in a minute. And then I've got 2 cards here with 2 resource symbols. There's little crates in the top left corner. So I have a choice. I can either buy this close call, which is a defense card. Destroy this card and draw a card. So when something attacks me, I can use this to destroy this, defend against that attack, and get another card, but it's a one-off shot. This first aid card is also a resource card, but it also destroy up to 2 wounds from any player's hand. That seems quite good, especially if I want to protect Carla from dying. And then a skill card. Now, skill cards are kind of like locations from DC Deck Builder, if you're familiar with that. It goes into your discard pile. Once you draw it into your hand and you play it out, it stays out permanently, giving you that skill whenever you need it. And this says, once during your play phase, you may place a card underneath this card. At the start of your play phase, draw any cards underneath this card. So you can prepare for later. Pretty decent, but I think I'm going to go with the first aid card. So it costs 2. That goes into my discard pile. I've now would discard the last 2 cards, which were the dead ones, as that's nothing left in my hand. So that's the end of my play phase. Before we get to the reserve phase, I redraw 5 cards into my hand. Why that's particular is because obviously something could mess with that if the hunt begins, and obviously to check if I have any wounds. I do not, and also as I'm Carl, I don't care. And then we go to the reserve phase. Now in the reserve phase, this is sort of like a 2-step process, if you like. First part of the step is you need to refill the reserve row up to 4 cards again if there's less than 4. There's only 3 cards, so I have to draw 1 more card. This is a hostile card that goes into the reserve row. That's step A. So if there was only 1 card left in there, I would have to draw 3 more until there's 4 cards. If the Terminator is drawn, it goes to the side. We'll come back to that. As it wasn't, it's 4 cards there, and the Terminator is not out. Now it goes to step B, and this is the part where you can add more cards to the reserve, and as many as you want, until A, you choose to stop, or B, the Terminator comes out. Now I know the Terminator is in the top 5 cards, so eventually he will come out. I can obviously, as a choice, I can look here and go, well, I know it's Carla's turn next. These are the only 2 real options she has, and she doesn't get to draw cards before she buys. So it's basically whether or not I want you to have more cards. Do you want me to draw another card?
No, because I know that I'm not gonna, my hand isn't good enough to do anything really, so.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so then at the step B is, actually, I jumped ahead there. The step B is you have to draw at least 1 card.
That's true, actually, yeah.
So I'm drawing 1 card, but now I have the option, I can keep drawing if I want to, or I can stop and pass my turn, which is what we discussed now, and I'm going to do that. If the Terminator was out, we would go into the hunt phase, which is part 3, but he's not yet, so we're going to skip that for now. Then we go to end of turn, and that's a round. So it goes over to Carlo.
Okay, so first things first, I check my hand for any wounds. If I have 3 or more, we lose. Okay, so I have 3 setbacks in hand, which is not great. They are dead cards. But I have 1 prep and 1 forewarned protector. This card's pretty good. It gives me 4 resources to patch us with, but unfortunately it's a destroy this card.
So it's a one shot.
It's a 1 use. So I don't feel like anything in this row is affordable for me. Sarah Connor is 1 step ahead. That's her ability, which means that munitions, these orange cards here, cost 1 less in her turn. So at the moment, I could buy this for 7, but
But you've only got 5.
I've only got 5 in hand, so it's just not good enough for me. So I'm going to keep this card for, later, which unfortunately leaves me with 1 prep, which I think I will just take the close call, because having a defense card is not necessarily a bad thing. And then I will choose not to play the Forewarned Protector and end my turn, which means at the end of my turn, we go back to the first stage, which is you need to have 4 cards in the...
Just want to interrupt you for a second quickly. The other option you have during the play phase, instead of playing your cards, you can also rest. When you rest, you can basically discard your hand and then remove 1 card from your hand. Basically, it's like if you want to get rid of a wound or rid of one of those setbacks, you can do that, but you can do nothing else. You're basically skipping your turn to get rid of that card. So sorry, carry on.
Okay, so I'm down to the kind of setup stage again. So the first thing is 4 cards. We do have that. Then you have to play 1 additional card, and then I can choose to play more.
Yes.
So you want more?
No, that's fine.
I was going to say, really? So as Jason mentioned before, we know that the deck has been seeded with a Terminator somewhere in the first 5 cards. And I think we are incredibly weak at the moment. So
I think we've brought out 3 new cards so far since then. Unstoppable, Firearms Expert, and Normal Life.
Which
so that means it's in the next 2 cards.
So it's either in your turn or in mine.
Yeah. All right, so that's end of your turn, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right, back over to me. It's obviously a very cautious, slow start to this game because obviously you don't have a lot of good cards. So as you can see, this is my now second hand. I've got 3 preps and 2 setbacks. The 3 preps I think I'm going to spend to buy that Firearms Expert. It's a skill, and it says the first time you play a munition card each turn, you may draw. Actually, maybe that'll be good for you, because you're going to be buying munition cards because you get a bonus to them. So I might leave that for you, actually.
The other thing worth mentioning is, where we were saying that you have to have at least 4 cards, and why that is a separate step to then draw a card is because if there were, say, 5 or 6 cards out, you still are required to draw that 1 additional card.
Yeah, so that foreboding that he's coming is
he's coming, yeah. So that's why it's 2 separate steps.
So instead, and obviously this is a fully co-op game, so I'm going to spend 2 of my preps, and I'm going to buy this a Normal Life. It's a resource card, so it's going to give me another one of these, and again, +1 supply for each resource played this turn, including this one, which is pretty good. That leaves me with 1 prep left. I can't do anything with that, and I'm going to discard my 2 setback cards. That obviously, I have to redraw 5 cards now. I don't have any cards, so as normal, you would then shuffle your discard pile and draw 5 new ones. Alright, Carl, what do you got for me? Alright, so 3, 4, 5. So that's my new hand. Obviously, check if there was any wounds. I don't have any wounds, so it doesn't really matter. And then step A, there's already 4 cards, so I don't have to worry about that. Step B, and there is the endo. Right, so he comes into play right there. And now we go, so that ends the reserve phase. As soon as you draw him, it ends the reserve phase. Except part A. Part A, you put him to the side, carry on drawing. Yeah. So part B, he ends the reserve phase. Now we go to the hunt phase. So now the hunt phase, there's 2 options you can do. If the endo is damaged, not necessarily staggered, but just damaged, then you can flee. And what that does is, let's say, for example, it had 3 damage on him. I would then remove that 3 damage, draw 3 cards from the top of the deck, shuffle him into that, and put it back on top. So it basically represents us escaping him. But he'll come back fully charged, no damage on him whatsoever.
And he keeps doing that until we have enough.
Until we get 5, and then we destroy him. You'll also notice it says, if this Rev 9 is staggered, you must flee during the hunt phase. If this Rev 9 takes 15 damage, it is destroyed. So you can't. What that means is, if you can kill him on one turn, you're good to go. But if you stagger him and then keep him staggered for the next round, you have to flee.
You need something like the EMP grenade, which we have out on display at the moment. Nice and handy. So if the Rev 9 is staggered, destroy it and add this card to the reserve.
Yeah. So he's not damaged, so we can't flee, so we have to do the hunt phase. Now, the way the hunt phase, this is his hunt value over here. It's basically he spends 4 cards. So first he'll take any hostile cards in the display area
and
use them. So this unstoppable, it's not actually that bad. It says remove 5 damage from the Rev 9. He doesn't have any damage, so that's not a problem. This goes to the bottom of the deck, which I forgot to sort out earlier. And then we've used 1 card. We need to spend 3 more cards. So we draw cards from the top of the deck, and any card that's not a hostile card or a location is removed from the game. So these 3 cards here were not hostile cards, so they didn't do any damage to us. They weren't location cards, so these are all removed from the game. So the hostile cards go to the bottom, which means eventually we're going to get into the point where he is just absolutely thrashing us.
So the deck builds up lethality from the bottom upwards.
Yeah, that's a good word, lethality. All right, and that's basically the hunt phase. So we got away scot-free there because he didn't do that. 1 hostile card didn't do any damage to us, and there was no more that came out, although we did lose some good cards over there. And that is the end of the hunt phase. Then it goes to end of turn, and then back over to Carla. You'll notice she has less cards to like in play now, so.
So, and I'm assuming while he's out, we can't draw anymore.
Yeah, we can. We're definitely going to the hunt phase.
Okay. So, do you not replenish this?
That phase is skipped past.
So basically, just the hunt phase is what. Okay. Right.
So first thing you've got to do is play your cards.
Okay. So I've got 1 setback, which does nothing, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 prep cards, which is basically 4 resources to purchase something with. So as Jason pointed out earlier, I have got a firearms expert here, which helps. She's a little bit cheaper. So the first time you play a munition each turn, you may draw a card, which may help me kind of stockpile a little bit. So I could do that. And I think I'm going to do that. It means basically I've got 1 that's unspent, but cannot do a huge amount about that.
Just pause there. Alright, so that was a play step. So you draw your 5 cards. Have you draw your 5 cards already? So give it a shuffle. And now, when she's done drawing her 5 cards, we go to the reserve step. So the reserve step is slightly different to when the endo is not in play. So part A, you still have to draw until you get to 4 cards. Obviously, there's no threat of drawing an endo because he's already in play. So she's just going to draw 2 new cards to add to the reserve row. And then, step B, she draws 1 more to add to the reserve row. But then, because he's already in play, you can't add any more until you want to stop. That immediately will end. So basically, the reserve then when he's in play is 3 cards in this situation. 50 cal rifle.
So we've got 4 cards.
And then 1 more for phase B. And then now we move to the hunt phase. Now, normally, if he was in the deck, you could keep drawing until you wanted to stop or he's drawn.
And of course, he's going to benefit from any what are they called, the red cards?
Hostile cards.
Hostile cards that come out during this phase.
But as there's none, so that's pretty handy, actually.
I mean, I'm a little nervous that there's none out. That means we're going to get a whole bunch of them come out.
So now we go to the hunt phase. He's not damaged, so we cannot flee. So we have to go to what is called the, I suppose, the hostile phase. So we draw 4 cards from top of the deck. So we've got a medic, a covert, a smoke grenade,
oh no,
and a protector. So none of these cards were hostile cards or locations, so they're all discarded from the game. And he sits around chasing after us, smashing through doors, kicking in buckets.
Get rid of our resources that we desperately need.
Yeah. All right, and that ends the turn. Okay, back over to me. Play cards. All right, let's do this. So I have actually drawn my T800 card. I'm going to play that and do 3 damage to the Endo, who's now actually damaged. And I have 2 resources in my hand. I could buy a supply run, which I quite like, because I need to get some ammunition as well. I really like this, but that's 5 and I only got 2. So I'm going to spend 1 and apply that supply run. And I've got 1 left, which does nothing. And I've got 2 setbacks, which does nothing. So I'm going to discard both of those. So now we go to the reserve. Oh, actually, first of all, I've got to draw 5 new cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For what it's worth, do I have 3 wounds? I do not. It doesn't really matter because of Carl. And then we go to the reserve row. So there's 4 cards. So we skip phase A, go to phase B, where I get to draw 1 more, which is the alert over there. And now I choose. He is damaged, so I could flee, which means I'd take 3 cards from the top of the deck and shuffle him into it and then put it back on top. Or, which would then obviously mean we don't lose 4 more cards or take damage from those 4 cards. But I feel like we haven't taken any wounds yet.
Mm.
And I don't know, I feel like I might leave him there. Although we don't
leave him there.
We don't have anything to hurt him with, though.
Oh, I see. It's because when he gets staggered, that's when he goes back.
So it's whether or not we want to take, the top 4 cards and see what damage he does out of that, and then leave him there. And then, have you got any damage on you in your hand?
No.
Oh.
I haven't taken any wounds.
No, I mean, have you got any bullets?
Bullets. Yeah, ammunition.
Yeah, if you could do like another 1 or 2, it means we can dig him potentially deeper into the deck.
I haven't bought anything that deals damage yet, so I'm useless.
You know what? I'm going to flee. So I'm going to take those 3 away. Draw the top 3 cards. 1, 2, 3.
The temptation is really there to try and hold out, but the problem is if he hits us now, that's quite damaging, and having even 1 or 2 rounds of reprieve is worth it.
Okay, so he's severely shuffled into here. This will go back on top, and that ends my turn. Over to you.
Okay, so do you not do setup now? Okay. So I have a fairly poor hand, unfortunately. I've got 1, 2, 3 setbacks.
You could skip your turn to get rid of one of them if you wanted to.
Yeah, and 2 preps. So the only thing before I wanted to do anything was to have a look at the skill. So prepared. Once during your phase, you may place a card underneath this card. Oh, it's kind of good.
If I was you, I would be tempted to get rid of one of those setbacks.
I think I'm going to do exactly that. So I'm going to get rid of setback. So that is now removed from the game. And I'm forfeiting my turn for the sake of
just getting rid of those dead cards.
Yeah, which means I then have to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. And as Jason says, we need to check for wounds, but it doesn't come into play until you
actually take any wounds.
Well, no, but also, like if I drew wounds in here, that's not the end of the game.
No, but we haven't taken any yet, so
it only comes into play at the beginning of your turn. So at the end of my turn, I need to make sure that there's 4 cards out. There is. There's 5. I need to draw 1 additional one.
That was a mistake. Unstoppable. Okay, that's also a hostile card, which is quite annoying.
Yeah.
Alright, so
And that's the end of my turn.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's not in play, so you could push further. Alright, so we've skipped ahead a little bit, obviously, because the game is quite long. Not long, but, there's not a lot going on at that point as we're trying to build up. We're a little ahead into the game now, so let's see how it goes from here. As you can see, the Endo is out. It's Carla's turn now. What are you going to do, Beb?
Okay, so I have had some damage. The endo has basically grabbed me a few times. So I've got 2 wounds, I've got 2 prep, and a close call. Which... Sorry, my brain was just thinking essentially this would be useful during an attack phase to have this in hand, but now because I haven't had any damage, it just gets discarded with there's nothing to defend against. So I have 2 prep. I think so improvisers, you may choose a munition in the reserve and add it to your hand to destroy it at the end of play phase. Or I could have once during your play phase, you may play a card underneath this card. And I quite like this prepared.
Well, if you get that grenade and one of your weapons, you can prepare them under there.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, we can kill him.
Or I can have that to use specifically on munitions. But I think I'm going to go with prepared, but I'm also going to take...
Okay.
Hand it over. Just in case I need to bully some stuff out of you.
So you draw 5 cards.
Right, so
make sure you don't have
2 of my...
Fortunately, I don't have any defense cards in my hand. In fact, my hand is abysmal.
I'm just hoping I can draw that defense card again, because I don't think I can't cope with all the wounds in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in hand. Let's check if I'm dead.
That's a wound.
No, I'm okay.
Alright,
Right.
so you draw at least 2 cards.
Phase 1, there's to be at least 4 cards out, which means I need to draw 2 more.
Ooh.
Right. And then 1 more to start phase B.
And then we go into the hunt. We can't flee because he's not injured.
Correct. First thing we do is we resolve any damage cards or any attacks.
Wound the current player.
Ugh, I mean...
Have you got the defense card?
I don't know. Nope.
Right, so take a wound.
I'm gonna so die.
And then can I do the next 3?
Yeah.
So we lose crude weapon. We also wound the current player. Another attack.
No.
And another attack wound the current player.
This endo is kicking our asses.
So that one gets removed from the game. These 3 go to the discard pile.
You know, because the bottom of this deck is lethal enough already.
You know what the bad thing is? You've got 3 cards in your discard pile now. If that other card comes out, we're dead. There's a card in there that I can't remember what it's called, but it says if any player has 3 wounds in their discard pile, they die.
You dead. And unfortunately, those will stay there at least for another turn, maybe even 2.
Yeah. All right, so it's my turn. I've got a really, really terrible hand. I could rest, but I do have a normal life, which gives all my resource cards I play +1 resource or supply. So there's 2 supply, +2 is 4. I'm gonna... I do like that life savings. That's pretty cool, but I'm gonna buy this rifle. That goes into my discard pile. Then the rest of my hand is garbage, so that goes into there. I have, of course, not done any damage to the endo, so we will be hunted. But first, we've got to bring the deck up to 4. Oh, joy. And then, obviously, phase B, we draw another one. And then we go into the hunt phase. Devastation. Wound every player.
Because, you know,
What's
wounds aren't...
You got 4. Your discard pile is just 4 wounds.
I mean, I've got 1 in hand too, so there's just 5 there.
Hand it over. Revolver.
I mean, Sarah Connor's hard, but this is
Cornered. Place each non-hostile card in the reserve at the bottom of the fate deck. Okay,
non-hostile.
Yeah. So all these cards go to the bottom.
Yeah, the problem is when.
Yeah.
So if you try and get rid of him this turn, you can't, can you?
You can if he's wounded.
No, I mean you physically can't this turn.
No. So basically, it just clears the board. So that's good. I'm glad that happened. That was my turn, by the way. So it's your turn now. There's no cards in the reserve row for you to buy.
Well, while you're shuffling, do you want me to lay out the first 5? Because that's what you have to do.
No, that's passed already.
Is it?
Yeah, it's reserve, then hunt. That's what I'm saying. Your turn starts with no... Your turn is just...
Yeah, okay. So I've got a setback and a wound in hand. I've got 1 prepared, which I'm assuming this doesn't stay out, does it? You have to set it up?
No, it's once you play it, it's out.
So this now stays out?
Yeah, it's now a permanent skill that you've learned.
Okay, well, I have another one. Firearms expert.
Put him into play.
And then I've got an assault rifle. So...
Luckily, your turn had no resources to spend anyway.
Okay, so my assault rifle does 2 damage plus 1 for every card I discard to it. So I'm going to discard my wound.
Yep.
As well as my setback to it, which makes it an attack of 4.
Yep.
Onto that endo.
That's yep.
Which doesn't stagger him, but we can choose to
flee in the hunt phase. Yes. I don't have anything that can kill him, so technically what we're trying to do is get him to be staggered or wounded on my turn, and then you finish stagger him and kill him on your turn, because you're the only one with a finishing move.
At the moment, yeah.
Yes.
Unless you can deal 11 damage.
Oh yes, I forgot that if we do 15, we can kill it.
Yeah.
I've got 3 more in my hand, but that's not enough. That puts him to 7.
Just to mention, I don't know if Jason said this at the beginning, but obviously this is one of the endos that you can fight. There are others with other win conditions and other stats. So, this is just the weakest one.
Yeah, this is a puppy compared to some of the others. All right, I'm thinking we should... Oh, no, but then there's actually... Okay, so is your play phase finished?
Yeah.
All right, so go to the reserve phase first.
Okay, so...
4 cards first.
1, 2...
See what they are.
3. There's another EMP, another munitions.
Awesome. So
right
now
so
phase B.
Now an attack card, which if we don't...
Yeah, so now we have a choice. If we flee, we'll shuffle him into the top of 4 cards. And this is the cards we have available to work with, which I think is not bad. I was thinking if there was more than 2 hostile cards that come out, then we shouldn't flee. But I think we should flee.
Yeah. Okay, which means basically because we had 4 damage.
Don't look.
Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. And him.
Christ, my hand's crap. Alright, so that's the end of your turn. What does the skill do?
The first time I play munitions, each turn you may draw a card.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Because obviously with your other card, the munitions, some of them are discard cards, which means you have more cards to discard. Alright, my play phase. I've got a supply run, which gives me 2 resources, which is good if I want to buy tough. When counting wounds in your hand or discard pile, count the total as 1 less. I'm definitely leaving that for you. So I don't think I'm going to buy anything. And I don't think I'm going to... I could shoot this, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to rest, and I'm going to get rid of this wound. I mean, I could get rid of any other cards, but...
If you rest, can you get rid of a wound in your graveyard?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see what my hand looks like. Holy crap, there's a lot of resources. Right. Phase A skipped. Phase B, protection. Nice. Alright, what's your hand looking like, Carla? Do you want me to bring another card out? Push our luck?
I've got 3 resources to buy with, so destroy this card, I draw a card. I don't know.
We've got 5 cards plus this hostile card already. There's no endo. We know he's in the top 3 remaining cards. Could push our luck and bring him out, but could also backfire on us.
Yeah, well, I don't have any I can't deal any damage this like if he does come out.
Okay, then I'm gonna leave it. All right, over to you.
Okay. Right. So do you have a first aid over there?
Mm-mm.
Because I've got handed over in my hand, so
I do not. I do have mostly supply cards and a skill and a wound.
can't do anything about that attack over there. Basically, I've got close call in hand, which is a defensive card, which would have been great whenever I've been dealt damage, but and I've got 3 preps, so I could steal a card from Jason, but I don't think I'm going to.
That tough is good for you.
When counting cards in your hand or discard pile, count the total as 1 less.
It's wound cards. So if you draw 3 wound cards and you have that in play,
1 less.
you don't die immediately.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I am going to take that at 2 and I'm going to stick a prep under this. So, well, no, maybe a defense, just in case he does come out. I don't know if that's worth it, but
It's up to you. I'm not sure. Can't tell the future. Okay, so
Okay.
draw your 5 cards.
Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Are you dead?
No.
Okay.
Because they're mostly there.
So we got 4 cards in play already. So
4 cards. Jump into phase B.
the endo.
Yeah, of course it is. Now, does that mean I draw another one? Because
no.
Okay.
It's only phase B where you put into the side. Phase A, sorry. So phase B, we go to the hunt phase because we can't flee. First attack is wound the current player. It's sitting there in your thing now. No, that's only if you draw it at the beginning of the turn. Oh, you could have drawn it now.
It says.
No, there.
It says once during a play phase, you may place a card underneath this card at the start of your play phase. Oh, start of your play phase.
So it's the next turn you can draw it out. So wound the current player.
Well, it wouldn't have been in my hand regardless.
And then that's discarded. That's going to go to the bottom. And that's discarded. That's it. Right, over to me. So I've got a skill, which I'm going to bring out into play. It's on my turn, the hunt phase resolves before the reserve phase. And then I've got my normal life with, so I've got 6 resources. I'm going to buy that assault rifle. Oh no, I can't afford the EMP grenade yet. That's really annoying. Oh, it's a finishing move. This card may be played in another player's play phase. If the Rev 9 is staggered and every card in the reserve is hostile, destroy it. Oh, this is in-game thing. No, I'll just go with the assault rifle. Okay, and I'll discard this wound and then draw my 5 new cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And go to that. There's 4 cards there now. And then one more. There's a hostile card, of course. Wound the current player. Okay. I'm into the hunt phase now, by the way. That's going to be discarded. Remove 5 damage from the Rev 9. That's fine. He doesn't have any. And a location. So that's removed from the game. That removed pile is getting very large. These go to the bottom. And it is over to you.
Okay. I am going to
Holy crap.
use the shotgun.
Okay.
And deal 5 damage.
Yes.
I'm going to discard 2 as its requirement. And then I'm going to use the EMP and take him out.
It's funny. In my head, I've got the 50 cal rifle and the smoke grenade. And I was like, for a minute, I was like, oh, I can do it on my turn if you can do one. It's like, oh no, that makes it flee.
Nope. So I've staggered it with 5. And then I've taken it out.
Yes. With a finishing move. So, look. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, actually, a shotgun. All right, we have won. So that was on easy, by the way. And we've played this a few times now, but some of the other guys, as you can see, I'll show you here. Like, for example, this is the next level up. He's got 15 health, and he takes 30 damage to be destroyed. And when he's staggered, his hunt value increases by 2. This one, let's go to the last one. He's only got 10, but if he's staggered, you may choose to shuffle the liquid exoskeleton and endoskeleton into the top 10. That means you take both of these and shuffle them so you have multiple Terminators in play.
No, thank you.
He's crazy. All right, so I'm going to cut it here quickly, and then we'll come back with our verdict. Okay. All right, so that was our play of Terminator Dark Fate. We're going to just go over what we think of this. So, this is obviously, just to reiterate, this is from River Horse Games. Obviously, deck builder game, very similar to most deck builder games, with a couple of added little twists. I mean, obviously, this is very much based on the movie. We're using all the same characters and the screen grab art. What do you think?
Well, I like it. The first time we played, I think the phase A and phase B thing was a little confusing. The whole getting out the 4 cards and then doing the next phase being the extra card. But once you understand the fact that that extra card always comes out, it becomes quite easy. So whilst we were verbally constantly communicating with you guys, it kind of slows down what we were doing when we played. I think it plays really fast. I think the fact that it builds up this kind of like the lethality of this deck slowly builds up from the bottom, and you feel that pressure every time you send that endo back in there. You feel like you're being chased because he's just one step, only 2 or 3 or 4 cards away each time. You kind of feel like you're being chased constantly. You do feel like you on the back foot all the time. You never feel like you have the upper hand until basically you all of a sudden are able to take him out.
Yeah, I mean,
he's always faster.
You can exceed his stagger value. Like, for example, we could have had 7 or 8 damage on there, and then this particular one would flee immediately once it's taken that much damage, and we could shovel him deeper into the deck. But it's hard to get that. I mean,
momentum basically built up. You start with nothing. You have no resources, and I think thematically it fits the. I mean, we haven't watched Dark Fate, but if you follow the trend of all of the Terminator movies, the actors, the main characters, they are always on the back foot. They always start with nothing and have to constantly be fighting to get every resource as the endos are basically, ripping it out from under them constantly. They're constantly on the run.
It kind of makes me feel more of Terminator 1, with Arnold Schwarzenegger relentlessly coming towards Sarah and
every location they think is safe becomes not safe or not available to them.
Scrounging for every scrap of munitions you can find. It has that very relentless feel. I will say, we played a 2-player, obviously for other reasons, because lockdown and all that sort of thing. But actually, I think this actually works better as a 2-player. We've played it a few times with 4 players.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gone down as well at a 4-player level. And I feel maybe it's because obviously the rotation of going round means that it didn't have that relentless feel. It had the sort of falling avalanche feel, because the skeleton, once the endo comes around, it's always out. Like you put it in 4 cards, by the time it gets around to you, he's guaranteed to be out again all the time. So you don't feel that personally, and it's always going to be 1, maybe 2 players that always have the endo in play at their turn.
Yeah.
Which means they always get a lot of wounds, and the wounds go around much faster in a 3 and 4 player game. I mean,
you do feel like in the 2-player, I feel like you have at least 1 round of reprieve. Not always. I mean, if you're unlucky enough to shuffle him right to the top, then that's be it. But I feel like you have that 1 or 2 turns at least of rest. Whereas when you're playing a 4-player game, he's almost guaranteed to come out unless you're really lucky and you're able to push him back further than 4 cards. He's going to be out before your next turn. So
and the problem with that is as well, the flip to that is obviously there's a lot less cards in the reserve row. So when I buy 1 or 2 cards on my turn, that almost means the next player or the player after that player has no cards to buy because the endos come out again.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel in a 4-player game that you're not building up your deck very well. You're just basically hoping that there's going to be a card for you to buy, and based on the luck of how your cards come out in your deck versus how much cards are available for you to buy in the reserve row versus has the endo there, to stop you. I feel that's probably hampers a 4-player in our experience.
But I also think that a lot of that is perception. Like, if you think logically about it, we very rarely, I mean, did we once choose to draw more?
No.
But so it means that we were short by 1 card each time.
But we worked it well as a 2-player because we've played it 2-player a couple of times, and we know that you don't want to push your luck too hard. But when it gets to a 4-player, you don't always have that choice. It's either you do nothing on your turn or you draw some more cards.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I enjoy this. This game plays beautifully as a 2-player game. I have no issue. And I don't know, is there 1-player rules?
There is a solo rule, I think. Solo mode, and then there's some other modes as well.
I haven't tried the solo mode, but I can foresee that this would work really well. The way that it plays, I actually don't see that there would be an issue playing this as a solo.
In fact, I think solo and 2-player where the game shines.
Yeah.
I definitely feel, I mean, I'm not a screen grab fan, so artwork wise, it doesn't go, wow, this is amazing. I always prefer new art to screen grab art, but it doesn't hamper the game in any way.
I think with certain franchises, I think it's essential. Like on a personal level, I think you can go wrong with artwork, and I think it's the way that they've done this screen grabs, the basic scenes directly out of the movie, is flattering. It conveys what they're trying to convey. The wound, having this in your hand, it stands out a mile, makes you nervous. Nothing of this is offensive. It's all really nice. The cards feel nice. The gems, the little gem counters being used as damage counters work well. Nothing offensive about this game at all. I think taking the art would have been dangerous because there's no known artist for this.
It also costs a lot more money. I think it's a very solid, compact little game, actually. I think if you're looking for a 2-player or solo, or even pushing 3-player, sort of very standard deck builder with a couple of twists, I actually highly recommend this. I think it's really, really good. I love the fact that all the hostile cards go to the bottom of the deck, which creates this sudden dread, especially after 10 or 15 cards are gone at the bottom there, and you know that the deck is not really getting thinner, it's just getting more dangerous.
It gets a little ridiculous at the bottom. It's just red and green, red and green, red and green. And you feel it because and then you're at that point where you're like, so how much of this deck is now just
And I love the fact that if you draw 3 wounds you die, because as soon as you start taking a lot of wounds, it's like bleeding out. And all of a sudden, I mean, when you play Carl, you don't have that dread, but if you play one of the other characters and Sarah, obviously, as soon as you start taking a lot of wounds, man, the stress of drawing wounds is a lot. It's better than any other deck builder I've seen when you have dead cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Because normally, like say in Clank or those cards, when you draw deck build or any like legendary, those type of things, when you draw wounds, they're annoying and irritating because you know you've missed out on getting a good card.
And generally it means that there's some sort of inevitability at the end of the game that affects you, whereas the wounds affect you every turn, right? If you draw them into your hand, you're sitting there thinking, am I going to draw something that's going to kill me now? And then even if you're lucky enough to get it into your discard, like it's sitting there in your discard and you're thinking, is that going to cause my death next turn? So, you know, even if the wound is in the past, it doesn't mean it's not going to kill you now.
What's funny is as well is like most card games that I play, I always look for card draw stuff. You know, anything that adds more cards to your hand in deck builders and card games, it's always a benefit.
It's our favorite mechanic.
But in this game, there's not many in this game anyway to begin with. But it's always like, ooh, I'm not sure I want to draw more cards because I'll probably draw into a wound and die.
Yeah.
And obviously, if one person dies, the whole team loses. So yeah, I actually think it's really fun. I really enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much more expansions they could do for this. It's a small, compact little game. Has a very limited space in the box. It's quite. Once you put all the stuff in here, it's full already. And I don't think the movie did very well. I'm not sure.
Well, we haven't watched it, which is not necessarily the greatest.
So I don't know if they're going to make any more, or if there's going to be any expansions to this or anything like that. But as a self-contained little deck builder for 2 players with a decent amount of variability, you've got the 4 different endos, and the last couple of endos are crazy. Yeah. They are so difficult.
You need to know how to play this game and manage your game with this. I mean, maybe that's our problem as well. Maybe there's certain endos that work better at multiple players.
Yeah.
So this endo is not great for a multiple player game.
We always play the first or easy or medium with new players.
Yeah. Which is not necessarily what we should be doing. Maybe the other endos are better for a multiplayer.
But I mean, we played once the 3rd level endo and he killed us so quickly.
That's not good.
and for this video, we decided to do the easy one because we don't want to put anyone off by just going, oh look, 10 minutes later we're all dead. So, you know, but I definitely recommend it. I think it's a really solid game. It's decent components, decent size, decent play time. Definitely fulfills I mean, we love deck builders anyway.
Yeah, it's our favorite mechanic, I think, in this house. I mean, a DC deck builder is not necessarily the most popular game, but that's a game I love. So there's very few games that compete with that. But this, I think, is quite exciting when playing. It's very atmospheric, and I love an atmospheric game. So anything that conveys a theme beautifully generally has, you know, ticked the box for us. And I think this was a surprise. When we sat down to play this, I was not interested. And I like deck builders. So and I like Terminator. It didn't excite me. And then we sat, and as soon as we started playing, it drew you in.
After I read the rules, I thought this was a complete rip-off of DC deck builder.
We were sure that this was not. And then as soon as you play, it plays differently. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is it doesn't play like any other deck builder I've played. It has similarities. It has things that you recognize, so you instantly fall into it, which I like. I don't like the long learning curve of certain games, but it's got enough variety to be really interesting.
I will say, in the rule book, just as a note, if you do pick this up, it says in the setup that your starter cards are 5 prep and 4 struggle cards. Struggle is setback.
Yeah.
They for some reason they didn't change it. They might have changed it afterwards or something like that. But just so you know that you're using the setback as struggle.
Possibly we've got a first print or a...
Yeah. So there's a couple of mistakes in the rulebook. But other than that, definitely recommend it. I would definitely, if you like deck builders and you like Terminator, the genre, and you want just a little bit of a change to your deck builder, and you're looking for a game to play with your partner, or maybe your eldest kid or something like that, I don't know, then I definitely recommend it. Yeah,
definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you got enough information out of that to make your own judgments. And thanks for subscribing and liking the video. And we'll see you in the next one.